We get feedback all the time. My children are especially good at giving me feedback, especially when it comes to dinner. They like to turn dinner into an episode of Chopped. Just the other day, my 7-year-old goes, "Mom, your chicken, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for taste and a 6 out of 10 for presentation." Well, I kind of thought that was generous, but was it effective? Was it effective feedback? Was I able to take that, make improvements, or take action on it? If my daughter would have said, "Mom, let's add a little bit more spices, maybe some garlic, oregano, or maybe you got too much green on your plate, let's clean that up or make it a little more colorful." Well, now we're in business. Who knows, I might be the next top chef. The same holds true for our students. We provide feedback constantly. But is that feedback effective? Is it specific? Is it timely? Is it actionable? Well, in this video, we're going to address those questions and give you ideas and strategies for you to provide that timely and actionable feedback for your students. Hi, I'm Dawn with Blue Apple. I always struggled with feedback. How much to give, when to give it, without spending hours and hours grading and commenting. And also realizing that effective feedback is for now. It's not for next time. That's where grades and summative assessments come in. Effective feedback closes the gap from where a student is now to where a student needs to be. It also shows the student that you care, that you took the time to read their work and talk to them about it. It increases motivation, and the students want to do better. The content for this video was inspired by the work of John Hattie and Shirley Clark in the book Visible Learning Feedback. After 15 years of research, Hattie found that feedback was one of the most powerful influencers on student achievement. So we know feedback is important, but how do we do that? Well, in this video, we are going to explore ideas and strategies for you to provide that actionable, timely feedback to your students. Well, in order to start giving feedback effectively, there are two things that we need to know. First, we need to create a culture that is mistake-friendly. Do your students celebrate mistakes, or do they shut down in the face of adversity or challenge? We want the students to equate mistakes with learning, to grow from the failures or mistakes that they make in their everyday tasks. Second, we need to make sure that we communicate clear learning targets and success criteria. Students need to know where they're going in their learning, what their goals are in order for them to take feedback and implement it. But learning targets aren't enough. They also need to know what that success criteria is. What does it look like when they met the goal? Success should never be a secret. When you've created a mistake-friendly culture and established clear learning targets and success criteria, you have set the stage for effective feedback. Your students are now ready to accept and use the feedback you give to them. So there are 3 things to remember about giving feedback to your students. The first is that all feedback should be timely. Now, many people believe that immediate feedback is most appropriate, but that's not always the case. One differentiator is the level of your student. Where are they in their learning? If the student is struggling, it's best to give them more immediate feedback so they can connect it to the content, context, and just be able to apply it right away. Now, if your students are more advanced in their learning, then delay it a little bit. And that's more beneficial because the student then is looking for ways to improve on their work without you giving them that information. And it motivates them to do more and to just not stop when they're done. Immediate feedback is also appropriate for students who are in more of the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy or in the surface level of learning. Delaying feedback for students that are in the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy or that deeper learning. Secondly, all effective feedback must be specific to the learning targets and to the qualities of the student work. Third, the feedback needs to be actionable. The students need specific ways that they can take action to improve their work. Effective feedback should focus on the quality of the student's work, not the person. Praise is really good for developing connections or rapport with your students, but it's not effective feedback. It doesn't give that actionable step for the students to make improvements. And if a student gets praise a lot, and if they don't get praise, they may shut down or become frustrated. And definitely what you don't want in that mistake-friendly culture. So steer away from things like, "You're so good at science," and try something like this. "I see that you've improved your understanding of metamorphism. Now let's tie that to the theory of plate tectonics." Not only was there a positive comment, but there was constructive comments as well, and giving them that actionable next step. Also, grades and comments with no suggestion for improvement are not effective feedback. When students receive a paper back and all the edits have been done for them, there's nothing for them to improve upon. If my daughter had told me, "Mom, you need to do this and this and this and this and this about my cooking," and did it for me, I wouldn't grow, I wouldn't learn, and I wouldn't be the next top chef. So to summarize, in order to create a classroom that accepts and implements feedback, we need to first create a mistake-friendly culture, and second, establish clear learning targets and success criteria. Now, once that's done, we can provide our students with that effective feedback. And doing that, remember TSA, timely, specific, and actionable. So stay tuned for specific strategies to help you start giving effective feedback to your students. Unless you have a culture that accepts and craves feedback, any improvement suggestions you give to your students are going to be wasted. So one way to do that is to model how we learn from our mistakes and how we grow. And that's through the "I tried, I failed, and I learned" strategy. It's an easy way for a teacher to model this, and I love to share my golf endeavors with my students. I try golf a lot, I fail golf a lot, and I learn about golf. And just the other day, I took this tip from my husband, and he said, "Dawn, you got to not lift up your back so much." I'm like, all right. So I thought about that one thing, one specific area for improvement. And sure enough, the ball actually went straight and went in the fairway, which never happened. So I take that as a win. So the more that we can model for our students our ability to take the mistakes or the failures that we've experienced, the more we're setting that stage for that culture that craves and accepts feedback. One of the most powerful forms of feedback a teacher can give a student is the one-on-one conferencing. Spending 3 to 5 minutes having a conversation about the student, about their work. It shows the student that you care about them, that you value them, that you're talking to them about their work and how they can make improvements. Now, one way to do this is to, as you circulate the room, try to meet as many students as you can. Or schedule these conferences on a rotating basis, using a calendar to help you keep track. Sounds like it might be a little tricky, especially if you have hundreds of students. But in reality, if you're giving students feedback on, let's say, a paper, and you're making lots of comments and suggestions, it's much easier for you to have that quick 3-minute conversation than to be reviewing and commenting on 100 graded essays. While you're conferencing with your students, start off with some more open-ended questions before you get into those actionable, specific strategies for improvement. Ask them to tell you more. Or what do they mean by this? Or how could they make this part of whatever they're doing clear? By doing that, it sets the stage for them then to take those specific actionable strategies and implement them into their work. An easy strategy you can use with your students when giving feedback, whether written or verbal, is the PEN strategy. So in step 1, positively identify a strength. Step 2, explicitly call out the areas for improvement. And step 3, help the student identify the next steps. So for example, if you're looking at a student's work and you see, you know what, you really understand how metamorphism ties to plate tectonics. But the one thing that's missing in your explanation is how igneous rocks tie to plate tectonics. So what do you need to move forward to get to that part of the explanation? Started off with a very positive comment, followed by a specific area for improvement, and talking about then the next steps. A very easy, quick strategy to make that focused, make it clear, and also save time for you and the student. So to review, we shared some strategies for you to create that mistake-friendly culture, as well as to provide effective feedback for your students. Hopefully you found one or two that you could use in your classroom right away, or check out the download for additional strategies to get you started creating that feedback-friendly culture. And remember, keep finding ways to be that blue apple teacher, the teacher that stands out, because awesome is what you do. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.